trip to Island Park is a reward in itself. Being situated only a stone's throw from Yellowstone National Park, a bonus comes from taking a short drive from Island Park to also view the beauty of the Yellowstone's awesome eye-popping scenery. The scenery at Island Park is a grand experience in its own right. However, the real value of a trip to any place comes from knowing the stories associated with that place's history. Such is the story of Johnny Sack. Johnny was a short 4-foot 11-inch immigrant from Germany. He came to Island Park in 1909 with his brother, intending to raise cattle. After years of punching cows for area ranchers, Johnny followed his heart. With a love for woodworking, Johnny began to build cabins and furniture from the native trees, odd-shaped limbs, knots, and pine cones growing in the forests around the Island Park area. Johnny leased one of 30 cabin sites offered by the U.S. Forest Service. He paid $4.50 a year for the lease. It took Johnny 3 years to build his cabin using only hand tools. He also built a small water wheel to drive the machinery that produced electricity and pressurized water for his cabin. Little did Johnny know that someday the cabin would become an historical landmark, with thousands of visitors crossing the hand-built threshold of his cabin's front door just to see his handiwork. Johnny never married, claiming, "A woman would just put rugs on my varnished floors and hang curtains over my picture windows." Johnny Sack's cabin is situated, most ideally, on the shore of a headwater pond called Big Springs, one of 4 of the largest springs in the world. Big Springs emits 120 million gallons of water every day, enough to service 1 million people. The spring is considered the headwater for the Henry's Fork River. Henry's Fork River is named for Andrew Henry, a fur trapper for the Missouri Fur Company. A few miles from the Big Spring source, Henry's Fork runs through a beautiful lavastone canyon, dropping over a 114-foot cliff called Upper Mesa Falls. It then continues to the lower falls and onto the main Snake River, joining the Columbia River, and eventually empties into the Pacific Ocean. Near Big Springs and Johnny Sack's cabin, the Henry's Fork is very placid and lazy. It is also very clean and nearly crystal clear. It is home to a vast array of wildlife, including fish, feathered fowl, furry 4-legged creatures, bugs, butterflies, and a plethora of other life forms. I spent several hours along the river on a small mile-long stretch of the river's bank. My camera was my companion, and the critters of the river at this venue were my unending entertainment. At some point, a moose and her calf appeared at the river. I hid in some willows to wait and watch. Presently, the cow and her calf came to my side of the river, a few yards from where I was hiding. The mom and her offspring climbed out of the water and onto the river's bank. The mother moose looked right at me. I held very still. I had heard moose have big ears because their eyesight is very poor. The mama moose began shaking her head and flapping her ears back and forth. I felt it was time for me to leave the flimsy willow patch and go for the safety of a much larger tree. As I was backing slowly away, I noticed something strange. The moose was not concentrating on me. I learned later when I looked at the photos, the moose had stirred up a colony of bees when she climbed out of the water to the riverbank. The bees couldn't sting her through her thick hide, so they were going for her eyes. With the calf in tow, Mama Moose decided to find a little friendlier place somewhere downriver. The river and its surrounding forest is filled in every direction with a kaleidoscope of living creatures. Sometimes it is almost like a comic circus. Here comes Jonathan Livingston Seagull screaming, "Clear the deck! I'm coming in for a landing." Let's see now. Landing gear is down. I've got my eye on the landing spot. Whoa, see that? I made it. And you didn't think I could stick the landing on this wet, slippery log. I admit it. I was shooting photos because I expected Jonathan Seagull to overshoot his target. They say all is well that ends well. The river is also a veritable playground for hundreds of humans who visit Island Park all summer long. Melody and Melina are positioning their kayaks, looking for deeper water so they can ride in the boat instead of walking on the gravelly riverbed. Alan lets the lazy river do the work of drifting the boat down the stream. Our beautiful little Brighton catches a ride with her grandma Melody. Jake pilots the boat for his mama, Melina. A middle-of-the-river rendezvous is in session. It might be time for more sunscreen. The river carries us homeward as we glide past a variety of wildlife. A great blue heron is winging it down the river. He doesn't mind stopping for our pleasure, giving us a chance to really look him over. In these closing shots, Jake is deciding how to get a drink from the water bubbling up through this rock while his grandma Martin looks on. Finding success, Jake sucks up the cool, refreshing water. Gracie tells the fountain goodbye in our parting shot for this trip to Island Park. Surely we'll be back someday, knowing the rerun will be every bit as good as the first time we took all this in.